Hey guys, good morning. It's Tuesday, October 9th, I believe, morning of, at least here on the West Coast. Um, I got the whole Arizona Pacific Coast, but it's called Mountain Time thing explained to me last night. So that's a positive. Um, a lot of unknown today and over the next week or so. Um, I'm down in Phoenix. I'm actually looking at some palm trees out in the distance here. Um, Down in Phoenix, and there's some unknown about the next few days, and some known, and continuing the journey. I'm just trying to decide if I want to come out of Phoenix up towards LA. Some very sparse areas, but there's sparse areas up outside of Flagstaff as well. I know later this week, I think Thursday, I might be going to the Grand Canyon, which I'm really excited about, and appreciate the lift up there and Susan taking the time to show me around a little bit. And then back on the road again. So tried it in the morning's recap the night before, and I've really been wrestling with this one early this morning, and even last night as to how to recap it, because it was really overwhelming. I could sit here, so I guess the best way I could do it is this. I stayed with a couple, Bob and Sue, who I'd never met before. They know me only because their cousin back in Ohio, who I never met, had heard about me and was following me. And she was instrumental in turning me on to Gary, who you've met in Chicago, and her other cousin Sharon's following me. And she turned these nice folks onto me. And they took the time to drive from Phoenix up to Flagstaff, pick me up, and bring me down to their house to welcome me. But on this journey, I've met many journey friends that are not just going to become journey friends, but many friends for life. And along the way, I've met a handful of people that are absolutely kindred spirits, absolutely. Um, I can't really explain it. I can't really explain in how a few hours you feel connected. Well, if you've been following me, you know one of my characteristics is I tend to be pretty emotional, especially if you go back to the early days. I tried to stop being that way because my daughter and her mom said, "Do you please stop crying?" But I'm pretty emotional and I cry pretty easily, especially when it comes to talking about my kids. And I met Bob and Sue yesterday. I could sit here and regale you with stories, amazing stories of amazing people, and I would go on for hours, and I could devote a whole, not just chapter, but a whole book to these folks. But there's something about Bob, like we're brothers from way back in the day. Um, Driving down, he would share some stories with me. Um, Tears would be coming out of his eyes, tears would be coming out of my eyes. They let me sit in the front seat. Sue jumped in the back, which I never feel comfortable with. I always feel bad about that, but just emotional. We got back down here. We got back down here to the home. They made me feel welcome. They showed me the room I'd be staying in. I put my things down, and we came out to the patio, and we just started talking um, from about 3 o'clock to probably about 9 o'clock. Um, at one point, I was diabetic and hadn't eaten all day, and neither had I, and it didn't matter. We were just communicating. What was really great for me was um, it was just sharing, but mostly Bob sharing stories, some of people in his life, some of his family, some of their travels. Um, I tell my kids, especially this morning, I literally don't have much to my name, but if I died tomorrow, I'd be the richest man in the world because of just the love and communication and tightness I feel with those kids. Well, Bob is just a little bit older version of me, and shared stories with strangers and helping. Um, these folks have been fortunate to be uh, um, successful not only in life but in business, allowing them to travel with their family and do things. And the memories that they were sharing with me were just phenomenal. Um, the other thing that was just blew me away is if you've known about me all along, you know how much I can hear a song I've never heard before, or even hear a song I've heard before and hear it a different way, and the tears will just start streaming down my face. Well, Bob and Sue belong to the Parrot Heads Club down here in Phoenix, and if you don't know who the Parrot Heads are, I highly encourage you to go to a Jimmy Buffett concert and experience it. But they're folks that just will have a great time. Um, but my point is that music moves Bob the same way it moves me. And surprisingly, on his iPad and player, he had many Phil Vassar songs and knew of him, and so you know he's my guy. And they were pretty bummed out to find out that he played literally just a few miles from their home back in September, and they had no idea. But there's music, and Bob was sharing with me how he and Sue have come to meet a few singers that were, I guess, they're professional singers now. I don't think you would know the names per se, but a lot of them, and maybe this is what intrigued Bob about me, a lot of them left successful, high-paying jobs to pursue their dream. Some of these guys didn't even play an instrument. They picked up an instrument, taught themselves how to play, and taught themselves how to sing, and went on to be kind of trop rock, this kind of island rock like Jimmy Buffett sings. And one of the particular gentlemen sings a song that Bob was telling me about in the car, with tears streaming down his face. And the story goes that he had taken his daughter and niece, I believe, or her niece or something, to a concert at our show, and there's a particular song this gentleman sings called Daddies and Daughters, and if you know me, you don't have to know any more than that right there, but it just is precious to Bob. In fact, he danced to that song with his daughter at her wedding. And he didn't play it the first time. He was playing Friday and Saturday night. And I guess his daughter ran into the singer and said, I'm kind of mad at you. My dad loves that song. You didn't play it. So the next night they're sitting at the table in front of the venue, and the gentleman comes up and sits down next to him and says to Bob, I understand you're mad at me. He says, no, mad at you? What am I mad at you about? He goes, well, I didn't play Daddies and Daughters. And he sat at the table acoustically and just sang it to him. So I'm getting choked up now talking about it. Anyway, so there he is with his daughter, hearing this song that meant so much to them. So that's pretty cool stuff, right? And the whole night was just like that. And I think, and I shared a few Phil songs I hadn't heard. I was like, I need to get that on my. But we talked about music, kids, life. Not everything's been perfect. But it told me a few stories where you got to take heads off to people. His youngest son, not his youngest child, but his youngest son. You talk about, chasing what you want, knowing at a young age what you want. He was about 6'6", 6'7", played varsity basketball from the time he was in 9th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th. College recruiters were coming knocking on the door. And one day his son comes home and says, I'm not playing basketball anymore. Excuse me? You had a free ride to college and you're not playing basketball anymore? And I'm running out of time, so I'll try to make the story as short as I can. But essentially he said, I'm going to be in a rock and roll band, Dad. What? As a parent, your son's got a life ahead of him. But he said, all right, well, get to college and study what you got to study and do what you got to do. And so he picked up a guitar, and Bob had played in a band back in the day. He said, I want to play what you played, Dad. And he taught himself how to play and decided he wanted to move to Seattle because that's where the rock scene was back in the 90s. And he hooked himself up with a band, and they actually cut a few CDs, and he met a woman and married her. And but the story goes back to something else that has been prevalent in this journey of mine. So another family impacted by drug abuse. Not them, but his wife. Uh, she has three nieces, or two nieces and a nephew, that her sister and brother-in-law were both going to be incarcerated for possession, dealing, whatever. And these three little kids were going to be going to foster home. And he and his wife stepped up and adopted these kids, gave them a life. Knowing that three kids is a handful, knowing that they had none of their own at this point in time, knowing that if they tried to have one of their own, it would just add to the plate. But didn't stop them. They went ahead and did it. And he shared another story with me of a dear friend. Died very young of leukemia. Didn't tell anybody. Was taking vitamin supplements thinking it would help. His wife ended up adopting three children from her family as well. So now you have a widow with these three kids, and that's what Bob and Sue were helping out this past weekend to kind of give her a little mental break, because there's a lot to take on. The kind of people I'm with. But I think the most special moment of the night for me, Sue, it seems to me every relationship has somebody that's a little more than the other. I'm raising my hands up like this here. One's more emotional, one's less emotional, one's more, passionate, one's less passionate about whatever. And that's where the balance comes in the happy relationships. And I've seen a lot of those. That's been very refreshing on this journey. A lot of happily married people. But the moment of the night came for me. Sue was raised a little bit differently, and is maybe a little less forthcoming with her emotions. So there's Bob and I sitting around this patio table, and Sue. And for the most part, Bob and I doing the crying and the talking. And then it came the music, and Bob is sharing a story about something, and it triggered something with me. And I'll end with this story, and I'll ask you guys to maybe listen to this song as the song of the day. So, way back in the early 2000s, maybe even the late 90s, in fact, probably the late 99, 2000, I was working in Philadelphia, and I was driving down to work listening to this country station, and a song came on by a group called New Song, and the song is called The Christmas Shoes, and they've actually made a movie out of it now on Hallmark. But I remember driving to work listening to this song, tears streaming down my face. I called up the radio station and said, who sang that song? They told me. That evening I ran up to, back in the day they had record stores at the mall, Sam Goody or something like that. Bought as many copies as they had, and I passed them out to my neighbors and said, look, Merry Christmas. The only condition is no kids. Hold your wife. Just listen to this song and the music. And I played the song for them about 30 feet from where I'm sitting right now. And without even knowing it, I'm got my eyes closed, and there's Sue and Bob. Bob is leaning over. They can't hear that well, so he's leaning over to hear the song. And Sue was losing it. And then unbeknownst to me, she opened up a little bit, not a little bit, a lot of it, and shared how her mom died a week before Christmas. And then her dad died not long thereafter of a broken heart. He missed his wife. And so 9 o'clock at night, three of us sitting out here, people never met before, noontime that day, crying together. That's really been, there's been many facets to this journey, but that's been one that's been kind of dominant as well, So, like I said, the conversation just flowed. Bob and I just seem to be, there's another emotional guy out there, more than just being emotional. Though it's the substance behind it, and I don't know, great people. The unknown for today is I don't know what's happening today. I know I've got plans to get to Flagstaff for the Grand Canyon sometime later this week, but the unknown is for today. So thank you for following. I love you. My name is Kira Grace. Have a great day, guys. I love you so much, and I'll talk to you all later on.